things just got way more intense for the Minnesota Wild as we have some pretty big updates, including a big one on the Marco Rossi situation that reveals brand new suitors that have checked in on the Wild, plus a Kirill Kaprizov look at his contract and what some fans and even analysts are saying is starting to get absolutely ridiculous with some insane concerns about the term of this deal. We have to dive into Kaprizov's contract and the controversy that's coming up around that and this Marco Rossi stuff, all coming up on this episode of Wild Digest. Quick reminder though, guys, we're nearly at 2,000 subscribers, and if you guys are enjoying the daily Minnesota Wild content, hit that free subscribe button down below. I know you won't regret it. Kirk, let's start off here. You know what? Let's just get right into the Kirill Kaprizov stuff, because this is something that, I'll be honest, it's getting intense right now with all the moves happening around the Wild to talk about these trades this offseason with Rossi, whatever. Kaprizov's contract has kind of been on the quiet front, but some recent stuff has us, I don't know, it has my mind blown. Look, this here is just one quote, and look, we'll be talking about a few others, but Wild fans are about to celebrate another long-term contract, this time for Kirill Kaprizov. After 185 goals, look, we know the points he got. He's going to have the closest thing to a blank check ever. Kirk, we might see him get 16 mil. Would not be crazy to see that happen. But they say his age is the one area for hesitation. Kaprizov's no ordinary sixth-year player. If he arrived in his age 19 season, the Wild would be handing it to a 23-year-old. Instead, we're going to ink him through his age 35 season. And Kirk, look, we'll link this article down below as well for people to check it out. I don't see the concern that you lock him up through the entirety of his prime, the best player in the history of the Wild. I'm starting to see this take more and more that the term on this deal is a concern for the Minnesota Wild. I completely disagree. I want to hear the fans' thoughts, but what do you think about this?
Now, I do completely understand where Wild fans are coming from.
Yes.
After seeing Zach Parise and Ryan Suter, the PTSD is there, let's be honest. But when you're looking at a guy like Kirill Kaprizov in today's game, this is a much different scenario. This guy is, as you mentioned, is already the best player in Wild history. We need to lock him up through his entire career. He cannot be on any team, any other team, throughout his NHL tenure. And, 8 years, no matter what, 35 years old. We see players in today's NHL play up until they're 40. Corey Perry is one of those examples. Bit of a different scenario there, but you look at a guy in Minnesota like Matt Zuccarello. He's 37, putting up still fantastic numbers and playing even a smaller role than he did a few years ago, but still staying as consistent as he always would. So, I do completely understand the concern, guys. It makes a lot of sense. But for anybody else other than Kirill Kaprizov, I would agree. But Kirill Kaprizov needs to be locked up. He is going to get only better and better and better throughout his career, and he's still young. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be better over these next few seasons, and when this Wild team starts to add with the money they freed up from those two contracts, this is going to be a very exciting look for Kirill Kaprizov, but also just the Wild in general. So you need to lock him up. I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, that's all you can say. You have to do it. And that's the other thing. Again, I get where the concerns are coming from, like you said, but I understand, but I just don't see it as a concern for me, because you have the chance to lock up, on any given day, a top 5 player in the league, really. Any given day, Kaprizov can be that. You just do it. This is a team that has had, 11 straight now first round exits or something like that. It's if you can keep talent around, you do it. You sign the blank check, like we're saying, but I don't know. To me, there's a reason we're talking about a blank check here with Kirill Kaprizov. There is a reason that he, in a lot of people's eyes, is the best Wild player ever. We need to hear from you guys down below. Are you concerned at all about an 8-year contract? Maybe you are. Maybe you want to voice that thought down below, and we'd love to hear from you. But for me here, Kirk, honestly, 8 years, 16 mil per, don't blink at it. Just do it. Deal with the consequences later. Plus, he's still probably going to be pretty good, like you said, well into his 30s. But we got to move on here to another certain player for the Minnesota Wild, and it's Marco Rossi. Now, there's some more updates, because we've been hearing a lot about Rossi. We don't know what his future is with the team and stuff, but there was a recent article coming from RG, and we also have some stuff from Sports Illustrated. We're going to dive into some quotes here that just, they shed a little more light on the situation here. Now, this recent report says, based on conversations with numerous NHL sources, this is James Murphy writing this for RG, the Flyers, Sabres, Penguins, Blackhawks, and Kraken have all expressed interest in acquiring Rossi. Some familiar names there, Kirk. We've talked about the Flyers before, the Sabres before, I think even the Penguins, but the Kraken and Blackhawks seem to be pretty new. And they just say, for whatever reason, I think maybe he just doesn't fit the Guerin mold. Doesn't seem to be a fit there. Whatever it is, there's a market for him. I think some teams see him as a real middle six guy with a lot of upside. He may not be as physical as you'd like, but the skill is there. Honestly, Kirk, I don't see how teams are still not seeing him as a future top 6 guy, but the fact we're seeing new teams linked to him just shows us, like, that market is there, and if Billy G is just not dead set on keeping him around, we can very well get a really nice package for him.
Yeah, we've been seeing as well, more teams are going to be added to this list as the days and weeks go on. We know that once the playoffs are over, that's when we're really going to start to see the full list appear, see who's really in, who's really out. But as you mentioned, adding new teams to this already and seeing that the familiar teams are still here, still conversating, I think it's come to a point where Wild fans simply are accepting that Rossi is going to be gone. I don't like the idea still, but at this point now, we've been hearing about it for so long that it's almost just, I accept it at this point. And it's just now we need to see the right deal. And I think that with these amount of teams and the more teams jumping in, this puts the Wild in an even better situation than what they were in, where you're going to be able to cause a bidding war and happen to get as much as you can for Rossi by maybe accepting a bigger deal compared to some other teams. And if someone's offering, 2 first-round picks compared to 1 and a player, there's just so much of the business side of things that we won't know about this for quite some time. But we just see that Marco Rossi is generating more and more interest, and it's starting to seem like a lot of people are starting to respect him, even though we have yet to see even the start of Marco Rossi's what's going to be an incredible career wherever it may be. So, I like I said, I don't want him to go, but it's starting to make more and more sense with these teams jumping in and the possibilities of some big trades. And we've been seeing JJ Peterka.
Yep.
That's one that I would absolutely love. That's one that really kind of sets it even for us and the Sabres. So I think there's so much that we really don't know yet and stuff that we probably won't even know until the trade is done and over with, wherever it may be.
Yeah, I agree. And like behind the scenes too, like, it's some people still talk about offer sheets. That's not impossible. I mean, look, there's some projections here. Aside from AFP, they have him at 7 years by 7.4, which is like, if someone wants to offer sheet him at that, it's one of the things I don't know if the Wild will match, but it's just more incentive to trade him before. And there are going to be teams like, you got to think about this too. There's going to be other teams who want to try and, first of all, not get him offer sheet, but they're going to want to try and sneak in so that, look, we know what we're willing to pay. We have assets. We can give you more so that we're not lost in this offer sheet shuffle. Like, it's a lot of money. And if the Wild are not willing to pay that, they're not willing to pay it. But looking at the lineup heading into next year, Rossi's got to be replaced by someone, like you said, Kirk. And honestly, a trade here at this point, like, you said you don't want him to go. I completely agree. But you also said, like, listen, I've kind of started to accept it, but not only accept it, the more that I see other teams are genuinely interested in him, the more mock trades, the more other names become available on the market, the more I'm thinking, like, yeah, there is a real shot the Wild get a player of good value for Marco Rossi. Because I think one of the worries for a while, at least for me, was that what if the return for Rossi is someone that just cannot make up for what he brought to this lineup, at least in the regular season, It's like, I want someone that's at least that impactful or at least some kind of overall value for it. And I don't know if like the compensation for an offer sheet would have been enough for me. But now that we're seeing, like you said, we got this list of teams like the Flyers. They have some good young players. Even Owen Tippett, a bit of an older guy we talked about. Sabres with Peterka. Penguins with, I don't know, whoever. Blackhawks and Kraken. Like, these teams all have guys that could fill in with this roster. And honestly, the fact that a bidding war will likely surface for Marco Rossi's services, like I said, makes me think that whoever the Wild get in return will actually provide quite a big impact, provided that they actually do fit Bill Guerin's vision.
Yeah, one name is not on this list just yet, but will be a major factor next year. It's Danila Yurov as well.
Yep.
I think that the Wild are expecting him to fill in that second line center role, which is definitely some big shoes to fill, at least at this point now, especially where he's not in regular center. But that just gives the Wild more opportunity. And I think a lot of teams are maybe saying, hey, we don't necessarily need a center back. So that's when a lot of teams are probably putting themselves out there. We don't want to give up a center, but we have a excess of wingers or an excess of defensemen that we'd be willing to give up, and the Wild are starting to entertain more talks. And I think it's just a ladder that we're going to start to see more and more stuff come out over the next few days and weeks. And I'm hoping at least that we see some sort of idea of what the Wild are looking for in return, because as you mentioned, Josh, as well, the fact that it may have only been a few teams firstly interested, that we didn't really know what kind of return, and the Wild may lose the trade, but now we're getting more teams. Now we know that it's likely going to be a bidding war. There's going to be a lot of teams willing to give up some big assets. And I just want to know exactly what the Wild are looking for in return, so I can kind of ease my nerves a bit on this whole idea, because, it's definitely a big idea to trade Marco Rossi, and, one that people don't agree with, but one that we just can only hope will work out in the end.
I gotta see what the fans think about this. Let us know down below, because I agree, like, It's going to be interesting to follow. That's why we're saying it's getting intense, man. As the days go by, more and more stuff's coming out. Something's going down. It's going to happen sooner than we think. But that'll do it for this episode of Wild Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all so much for watching every single day. I'm Josh Goss, my co-host, Kirk Day. We'll catch you in the next one.